All right. So does anyone have anything specific they would like to chat about? Are we typing or no?
I have something. So I am wondering how it works legally in our area. I'm on Central Coast, but I'm sure this applies to all of California. If you are going to an open house, what is the protocol for taking photo or video footage and sharing it with a potential lead?
Okay, good question. And let me apologize in advance if I cough. If I start to cough, I'm going to mute. It may seem at an odd time, but to spare your ears, I'm still dealing with whatever this is. So apologize in advance. So that is a good question, Kate. And if it's video or photos that you're taking to share with a client, that's okay. If you're trying to take video or photos to share online, you need permission from the list agent to do that.
Do you need any permission from the seller at all, or just is the listing agent okay?
The list agent would be okay because they would get permission from their seller, because you would not it's never okay for us as agents to contact another seller if it's not our listing. So we go through the list agent for everything, and then we would rely on that. Okay,
so you can just ask them for written or verbal when you're there at the open house. It doesn't have to be like pre-planned or anything like that. That can just be.
No, you can just ask. You can say, I'm here to tour this property for my client. They would like me to take some photos or video. Would that be okay? Something that I've done is I've actually turned the video on and asked the question on the video and let them answer on the video. That way you have it. All right. So we'll go ahead and go have Anthony share his situation. It's not a big deal, but not a bad situation, but it's a really good question. In case anybody has this come up, like I said, what he's about to talk about isn't super common right now. There was a day when it was very common, and who knows if it will be in the future, but we do hear it periodically. So Anthony, go ahead and share with us.
So basically I met this client at an open house back in August last year. She was mentioning how she wanted to sell her home. So I went to her house for a listing presentation, get the listing signed back in November. At that point, she was basically saying that she wasn't ready now, that she wanted to wait until like June, which is right now. Then came to last Friday, she gave me a call crying, basically saying that she got a notice of default and that they're starting the foreclosure process on her house. And just needed some help and some guidance through that process. She told me that she's basically had realtors and everyone calling her. She had like a realtor slash lawyer call her and basically told her that they could sell her house without charging her any lawyer fees by just the commission from selling her house. She told them no, that she has someone that she was working with that she trusts, which is myself, who she wants to work with. So now we're at that point. We are running into some issues though, because she is not the only person on the title. She's on the title with her ex-husband, who she doesn't really have like communication with, and things like that. So I'm working through with the brokers here, kind of how to go about that process. So basically we're at the point where she needs to sell her property. She received a notice on May 11th. That basically states that she has 90 days from that point, and then they're going to set a date to sell her home. So we're at the point now where she needs to sell her home as soon as she can. She is not under on her house, so if she sells, she'll still have some equity that she'll get from it. So that's a benefit. So she'll be able to sell and then hopefully buy a mobile home or buy rent somewhere or kind of have money for a transition. So yeah, we're at that point where just kind of working through everything with her and just waiting on her to come back at this point, since I've reached out this morning twice.
Okay, awesome. So what was the advice that you received there from the office?
So we were just going through like the title and kind of figuring out who exactly is on title, because I thought it was just her, but it is her and the ex-husband. So with that information, they both need to sign the RLA or the listing agreement. Reason why is because the title company won't insure the house if they do a quitclaim deed. So at this point, they both need to be on the listing agreement. And
Right.
I've never spoken to him or talked to him at all. I've only talked to my client. So I'm at that point now where I'm trying to communicate with him, but I need to get her contact info from my client and
Okay.
kind of go from there and get my next step.
Okay, so that is definitely your next steps and all correct. What I would add is that you could help your client by potentially speaking with the bank in her behalf. Now, the only way you can do that is with her giving you permission to them. And so what I was verifying that we had in the toolkit, and we do, is called a third-party authorization form. And it's in the transaction tools folder of the toolkit. And so basically, this would allow her, that she has to be open to this, right? But this would allow her to give you permission to speak to the bank on her behalf. So if they are confident that you as an agent are listing her home and doing everything to get it sold quickly, there's a potential that they will delay any sale, because if you could get it into escrow before that sale date in particular, they may delay that to allow you to do this. They might even delay it to allow you reasonable time to sell the house. So I would really recommend that you talk to your client about that and then use that form. Now, the bank may have their own form that they need you to use, so keep that in mind. Some banks are really picky about it. The one that's in the toolkit is pretty generic and one that's widely accepted. And yet make sure the bank doesn't need something specific. But that would allow you to assure the bank that you're working in her behalf and could avoid a lot of hassles and processes for them. So oftentimes they'll allow this. This kind of goes back to the short sale days of several years ago, where we were having to do a lot of talking with banks for the clients. And that's the only way to do that, is with a third-party authorization.
Yeah, that's what everyone keeps telling me about.
Okay, cool.
Difference is it won't be a short sale since she does have that equity in the house.
Right. And that's actually works in her favor, right? Because if you will get more money likely than a bank will get, right? So a bank is going to, what they're going to do is they're going to find another agent. They're going to have another agent do what we call a BPO, or a broker price opinion. By the way, if anybody ever asks you to do that, don't do them, because they're not worth the time. I mean, you can if you want, but back, I don't know what they pay now. They used to pay $50 and it takes too long. It takes several hours of your time, because not only do you have to do like a CMA, but you also have to go out and take photos and all kinds of stuff. So they're really not worth your time. Unless you have a relationship with a bank where they're giving you listings because of things like that. Okay. But they will hire somebody to go out and do a BPO, and then that agent will send the BPO in, and then they'll hire yet another agent to list the property. And then really they're just looking to get what's owed them. So yes, they'll try to get fair market value to the best that they can, but as long as they get their money back, they're not going to be worried about the borrower. Whereas you'll be concerned about the borrower. So she has the best chance to get the most money when she works with you.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of our main questions this morning was basically like her timeline, because if she doesn't have a very long timeline, then we need to list for low and sell as soon as we can. But it looks like that she has a good amount of time, like 90 days from May 11th. So it looks like we kind of sort of have a little bit of wiggle room there.
Yeah, I'd still list on the low end of the market to give her the best possible chance, especially with the market we're going into. You'll probably get multiple offers with the price higher. So very good. Well, hopefully you can get the husband's or ex-husband's contact information and get that ball rolling, because it's, if he's on title, if he just kind of a heads up, because I don't know what kind of a situation that is, if it's a nasty situation or not. And if he gets his back up about it, you might just say, hey, well, Mr. Seller, I'm calling because I'm also trying to protect your interests, because if this does go to sale and it's foreclosed on, this affects your credit too. So by allowing me to sell the house, we can protect both of your credit and be able to allow you to walk away with without that damage.
Mhm.
And just I've door knocked a lot of pre-foreclosures and all that stuff. I would look, the notice of default should also, like I was talking about the software I have, there's ways to find out when they actually missed their first payment, because usually like I want to give them the benefit of the doubt for sure, but this is this issue didn't come up yesterday, right? Like they procrastinated, and like there was so that pattern, like that's just something to be ready for. You know, that pattern will continue. It's going to be hard to actually make moves. So I think that's just something to keep in mind with that too.
Yeah, originally back in November, she was under pre-foreclosure as well. So been a while now.
Yeah, that's a good point, Val, because sometimes the reason that happens is people get such they become depressed and, you know, anxiety ridden and all that type of thing because of the circumstances, and then sometimes they just freeze, right? Because it's just freezing is easier than dealing with it. And yet now they're at a point where it's like, okay, we have to wake up and we have to do something if you don't want your credit ruined and you don't want to lose out on the equity that you have, because that would be silly.
And for most people, the house payment is the last payment that they don't make. So there's a lot of other payments, like there's stacks of bills probably everywhere in the house. The mortgage payment is the last one that they forget about. So it's just, you know, it's just always, there's just always more stuff coming with that, you know, like a little more psychology that you have to deploy.
Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Anthony, and I'm glad you're getting help there. I know your broker staff there is amazing. So whenever anyone has particularly legal questions, guys, these are questions for your broker. We'll always be your first line of defense, so to speak. But every once in a while, you're going to ask a question and we're going to refer you back to your broker. And it's because it's a legal question. Sometimes it's a question, or maybe not even a legal question, but a potential red flag question, right? And while there's a lot of questions that we're totally fine and okay to answer when it comes to those things, here's what we never want to have happen. And so this is something to keep under your hat for future potential use. If you ever get into a transaction where there are some issues and problems, especially if anyone starts talking about, you know, stealing deposits, losing deposits, keeping deposits, taking legal action, anything like that, you want to bring that to the attention of your broker. Okay. Your brokers are your friends. They're not anyone to fear. We all work together as a team. And here's what you don't ever want to happen. You never want your broker to be sidelined or, you know, hit in the face by something they didn't know of. So if there's ever any kind of a question about something like that a broker should be involved with, please make that happen. Don't be afraid of them. They are here to help. They're on your side, and never try to hide something. Excuse me, because that just hurts everybody. And oftentimes they may have seen a circumstance and can help you walk through it in ways that you might not think of.
Yeah, exactly. When I was talking with Nancy, she was like, oh no, I've dealt with this all in 2006, 2007. I know exactly. So she was able to help a lot. And she was looking at the title report. She's like, oh, I did these when I was 16 years old. I know all about them. So she was very helpful.
Yes. And anybody that's been around since, 08 forward has dealt with a lot of this stuff. Awesome. Okay. What other questions do you guys have? Last time we talked about something. Do you guys remember what the question I asked you was?
You asked about what is something that we have not done yet that will move our business forward.
Yes. Okay. And we had a discussion around that, and many of you had agreed to do that this week. That one thing that was, for whatever reason, you hadn't been doing. Who actually followed through with that? And obviously, if you weren't here, we're not talking to you, but Kate?
Yeah, I followed through with part of that. I offered two things that I was working through. One was door knocking, but I've been out of town. I'm not in the area right now, so not able to do that. But the other one was talking to old friends, old coworkers, just people from my past that I was close with, and letting them know that I want, just trying to reshape those friendships and those connections. And I have done a lot of that this past week. So part of mine, yes, I did. And it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be.
I love to hear that. Has anybody else had struggles with being afraid to reach out to certain ones and yet went ahead and did it and found out it wasn't as hard as you thought it would be? I think that's pretty common, right? The fear is worse than the actual doing of it, right? And sometimes the fear is what holds us back. I'm going to look something up real quick to make sure that I say it correctly, because I have a quote from Gary Keller that I just saw, and it was so good. Now there it is, right there. Don't be driven by the fear of losing. Be driven by the opportunity to win. What does that say to you?
It means focus on the good things. Like if you get a listing, then you get paid, or you get a buyer that gets an accepted offer, you get paid. Focus on the good things.
Yeah. What is the fear of losing or rejection, or however you want to phrase that? What does that tend to do to us?
Just do nothing.
Yeah.
Or not what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, we can become like those people we talked about earlier. They get frozen, right? So what about looking past that? And what happens if we actually gain an opportunity from that? Right? The only surefire no is what?
When they tell us no.
Or when is it always a definite no?
When you don't move forward.
Yep, that's right. So we have to ask, or it's definite no, right? So let's ask this question again. And let's see if either those of you that were here last week, do you have a different answer? Is it the same answer? And let's talk around this a little bit, because what I find common is when one person has something holding them back, I guarantee you someone else has that same thing, right? So the question I asked last time was, what is the one thing that you're not doing? And it doesn't matter why you're not doing it, right? It doesn't matter if it's because of fear, you don't want to, I'm not sure about it, I just hadn't thought about it. It doesn't matter what the reason is. What's the one thing that you're not doing that you know, based on what you've learned, based on what you've seen, you know, if you started doing it, it would move your business forward? Prospecting before an open house, cold calling.
I door knocked before my open house this weekend and I have a buyer for it.
What?
Yeah.
You just now sharing that? We've been on here for 23 minutes.
Sorry, it works.
Yay. Congratulations.
I mean, they still have to get their offer accepted, but they're a buyer.
You actually wrote an offer?
We're putting it together. So I door knocked the neighborhood, and a lady answered, and I handed her the flyer. She said, "Oh, this is the house that my friends want so bad. They're coming for the open house this weekend." And I said, "That's great. You know, they can see it." And then they couldn't come. So I did a video for them, sent it to them, and they loved the video. And they said, "Great, we'll be there next Saturday." And I said, "Well, there's no open house scheduled. Would you like me to schedule a private showing for you?" And they said yes. So I set that up. And then I was talking to the listing agent, and she said, "Well, we've kind of got some action on it." So I had told them, I said, "You know, Saturday's a long way away. I'll let you know if there's anything going on." And so I called them and I said, "The listing agent is expecting an offer to be coming in this week, and she's going to keep me updated. Do you want to put in an offer with just the video if another offer comes in?" And they said yes. So we haven't done it yet because the listing agent hasn't said, "Okay, you need to come to the table," but it's a possibility.
Awesome. That is exciting. See, it works.
Yeah, just letting Carlos know it's worth the effort.
Well, and so I caught something in what she described that I'm curious if anyone else caught. And this is so key and why it's so important to ask. Think about that for a minute. When she described what she did, who is her buyer?
A friend of a neighbor that wants to live in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's not the person whose house she knocked on. So it's not always going to be the person that we talk to. But often it's going to be someone they know that they refer to. Right? So awesome. Well, as long as you knock enough doors, it doesn't really matter when you do it. But yes, I think knocking a day ahead of time is a good idea because that gives you time to invite more people, knock on more doors, right? And maybe even save the ones right next to the house for the day of if you need extra time. But that just means you're going to talk to more people. So I know we have Ross in our group who has a lot of success door knocking. So not to say that's what you have to do, but if it works, right? And I should say, why does it work? Or when does it work best?
Whenever you're going to actually do it.
Well, this is true. Let's see, let me rephrase the question. When we go about doing it, how does it usually have better results?
When you put enough time in it?
Okay. Little more specific than that.
You're coming from contribution.
Yeah. And having a reason, right? Just door knocking for the heck of it because, yeah, this block looks great. That's not usually what makes it work. And why do you think that is?
Oh, so you're asking like, so when you have a reason to door knock the neighborhood.
And what does that show the person who you're talking to at their door? What does that show them?
Shows you work hard and that you're going to work hard for them.
That's right.
If they see that and realize that.
That's right. Because you're not just a salesman knocking on their door to sell them something. You're knocking on their door to help someone else, right? So when you invite to open houses, you knock on the door and they answer, "Hi, Mr. Householder. I'll be real brief. I know you weren't expecting me." If you start off everything like that, then it will go better for you, right? Because they'll know that you're not going to be there a long time. Excuse me. And then I'm just stopping by to invite you to the open house that I'm having down at your neighbor's house at 123 Main Street, because I promised I'd do everything I could to help sell their home. And usually it's neighbors nearby that know someone wanting to move in the area. Do you happen to know of anyone you might invite? Will I see you there? Right? So it's a completely different conversation than just door knocking a random block for a random reason. Okay. So let's see, I see your question to Kate, or to Emily, Kate. So how did you go about setting up your open house?
I was just typing a novel over here explaining it, so I guess this is a lot easier. I text any agent that has a listing that I would like to do an open house at, or that I think is likely that they would say yes, and that's typically vacant listings. Sometimes I'll text ones that look owner occupied. Tenants, it never works. You can't do an open house at a tenant occupied listing, or at least that's the way it's come across, because nobody's let me do one yet. So I just text him, but I'm very specific. Hey, I saw that you have the listing at 123 Main Street, and I would really appreciate the opportunity to do an open house for you. I'm free this weekend. I give the dates, and I say, anytime that works best for you. And again, I'd really appreciate the opportunity. So rather than just throwing out a blanket, hey, I'd love to do an open house for someone, I try to be very specific, so that it's easier for them to be able to say yes or no. If I just throw out hey, I'd love to do an open house for you sometime, why are they going to bother answering?
Okay, so you're direct with like the specific property that you're wanting to do the open house on.
Mm-hmm.
And then are you finding them from MLS listings or within your market center?
From MLS listings.
Okay.
I have a search set up that searches for listings that are done by agents in our KW Central Coast office. And that's kind of tricky because we have a billion DBAs. So you have to go in and like put them all in there. I'm sure I'm missing some, but there's a ton in there. And so I can just pull up that search each day when I get on the MLS and see if there's anything. And they usually do their own open house the first week. So I tend to not ask until after it's been on the market for a week. And that's the other problem that I was having, was that they were selling in less than a week. So of course they didn't need me to host an open house, but things are sitting a little longer. Last weekend was my fourth in a row. And I have another one set up for this coming weekend.
Okay. And are you door knocking each time you do an open house? Okay.
Either door knocking or doing the circle calling. I get the phone numbers from the title company for around the house. But the reason I switched to door knocking this last time was because most of the homes were not owner occupied. The owners, like all the phone numbers were like Kansas and Texas and Florida. They're all investment properties. So it was doing me no good whatsoever to dial the phone. So I went and knocked instead, thinking that at least if it was, somebody there in a vacation rental, maybe they want to move there. So, that at least wasn't a total waste of time.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Make sure that you go in, Kate, and do the open house session for the in the training series, because that'll give you a lot of information there, as well as some additional video help there. Okay. And then keep in mind, it's a reminder with your question, some of you can do the entire MLS, and some of you cannot. West Ventura County at this point, you cannot. I know I've heard they're working on changing that, but right now you have to stick within your market center. The rest of you, as far as I know, can do open house on any house in your area.
And now that we've gotten that permission, I'm thinking to myself, well, how awkward is it going to be to host an open house for, a place that has a for sale sign out front from Better Homes and Gardens or Remax or whatever. And I assume I'll get over it, but I'm like kind of thinking, as long as I can find KW ones, I'm not going to be
in Ventura, we can do them for other brokerages too. They just can't do them for us. I don't know if that's new, but there was I heard I heard Nancy talk about that last week or something.
Okay, they must have just changed that then, because I heard they were talking about changing it. But up till now, you had not been allowed to. And so that's why I keep having to preface that every time that question comes up, so that you guys don't go get yourself in trouble. But great, because that opens the door much wider. And I would recommend, however, just like Emily said, please use your own office or another KW's listings first, just because that does make more sense. Your own office makes the most sense to help within the office first and then branch out. But also what you might consider is look for listings from agents out of the area, because they're less likely to come to that area to do an open house, and they may need the most help. So that's probably your second best way to look for them, and then go outside from there if necessary.
Good question actually about that. So I was at an open house last weekend, and it was another agent doing that so it was one brokerage doing it for another, but the one that was doing it had an offer accepted. So at that time it was already under contract. But I think as part of the negotiation, they negotiated that they could do an open house on it. Isn't that kind of weird? Like, it wasn't like on Saturday, it didn't say under contract yet. And on Sunday it said it, but they were still holding an open house. Is that something like, I was like, well, should I now negotiate that if I get my offer accepted, that like the first weekend during escrow, I'm going to do an open house?
No, that's not really something we can do. That would be inappropriate. So
Yeah, right.
you can't negotiate anything for yourself within a negotiation for your client. That's not a fiduciary responsibility. Now, they may have already agreed to do the open house and been in negotiations and asked, hey, can I still do it? But if they specifically said they negotiated to do that is as part of their acceptance, you can't do that.
Yeah. And if it's not like, is that, I mean, it would be a great opportunity, but I was just thinking at the same time, isn't it kind of weird if you already know that you're under contract and your clients are in escrow on that property and they're dealing with inspections? Do you really want more people running through it? I don't know. Is that a good idea?
That's up to the seller, right? Because
Yeah.
it depends if an offer that's accepted isn't super strong, or the inspection period isn't over yet, a seller may want to have it continue to be shown for backup offers. So there's nothing wrong with doing an open house if an offer gets accepted. And sometimes they get accepted so close that you don't have time to cancel the open house, right? So, and you've already put it out there and you've already invited a bunch of people. And so you can just say, hey, we're doing it because we didn't have time to cancel it. I'm sorry, we do have an accepted offer. However, if you're interested, I can take your name for backups, and I have access to the entire MLS. So what is it that you're looking for in a home, right? And just take it from there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about it. I got an offer that hopefully gets accepted, and it's a beautiful house in a great location. So I was like, how can I get that open house?
I had a situation where like that where I was hosting the open house and they already had an accepted offer, but the list agent was telling me that they weren't accepting any backup offers. And then this client came in and wanted to buy that home, and she was upset that basically we were having the open house and that they weren't accepting backup offers. So
well, in a case like that, so I would hope the situation would be, well, we're doing the open house because we had already invited so many people and we didn't have enough time to cancel it. However, you know, I'm happy to help you find a different house. What is it that you're looking for? Right?
Yeah.
That's how I would handle something like that. Good questions, though. I did want to address, Kate, you had put in the chat cold calling. What's the one thing you're not, when I asked, what's the one thing you're not doing that if you did do? Okay, so first of all, what I would ask is that you remove the word cold, right? We don't cold call. We are not those kind of salespeople. When we call, we only call for a reason, right? Coming from contributions somewhere, whether it's we're calling because a house just sold, had multiple offers, and now we have a number of families that didn't get the house, so we want to help them find a house in the neighborhood. Or a house is just listed, so now we want to ask the neighbors if they know anyone that wants to move into the neighborhood, right? Or we're inviting to an open house, or whatever the reason is. We always have a valid reason to call. We don't just pick. When I hear cold call, I think random numbers, random area. Just, I hope something, I'm going to throw something out and hope it sticks, right? So that's never what we do. So calling for a reason. So we typically refer to it as circle calling because we're calling around a specific area for a reason, like that just listed or just sold or that open house. So, but in that, am I hearing you say that you're not calling enough like that? And you know, if you did that, things would improve.
Yeah, I guess the terminology, I'm still kind of figuring that one out. But I do definitely think intention behind each call, especially because you're looking for a specific target audience and like for sale by owners or whatever your goal is in that. But I haven't made calls in general for that purpose.
Okay.
So that'll be something I'm working on next.
Okay. Well, I would encourage you to do that because, again, I think you'll find that it's a little easier than you thought it will be, or than you think it will be. So speaking of, she mentioned FSBOs. Has anybody called or worked with FSBOs recently? So that is something that you might want to think about. And in calling FSBOs in your area, there's lots of different ways to find them, right? That website that we hate, that or that we don't like, right? I shouldn't say the word hate. The website we don't like. Craigslist, any other local areas, right, that have any kind of local listings. FSBOs are a great way to get listings. Does anybody remember what the statistics are around FSBOs? So it's about 94% of all FSBOs list with a realtor within 6 to 7 weeks. So that's a pretty phenomenal statistic. Now, how do you get to be the one that the FSBO wants to list with? So let's think about this. Scenario one, I'm going to call the FSBO and I'm going to say that they don't have their house listed for enough. I can get them more money. Let me list your house. Or scenario two, hi, I noticed your house was on the market. And as you know, as realtors, we only can see what is listed in our MLS. And so would it be possible to have an appointment to come and see your home in case I should happen upon a buyer that would be interested in your home? Scenario one or scenario two? Yeah. Remember, we're always coming from contribution. So if we're going like a bulldog wanting to get that listing when we initially talk to them, that's a way to get us checked off their list of the agents that they may consider when wanting to sell their house, right? Now, have agents done that? Do they get the listing? I'm sure they have. But statistically, you're going to get, what do they say? You catch more flies with honey, right? So if you are the agent who comes from contribution, knowing it takes about 6 weeks on average, and you have 6 weeks worth of value to bring them during the time that they have it as a FSBO, when they finally get tired of dealing with it themselves, who do you think they're going to call? Right? So when you go visit the home and you see the condition of the house and you know what it's listed for, now you can do a CMA to say, are they priced too high? Are they priced too low? Right? So you can offer to take them, return with a market analysis. So that's another reason to reach out to them, right? So talking to them, have you had many people want to see your home? No, it's been on the market for 3 weeks now and we haven't had anybody want to look at it. Huh. How did you come up with a price for your home? Right? Well, I tell you what, I have access to everything that the appraisers use to value homes, so we can get an accurate market value. Would that be of interest to you? I'd be happy to drop that by tomorrow afternoon. Or maybe you find out that, wow, they've priced their home really low and you could get them more, including them paying you a commission. You definitely want to show them that, right? So coming from contribution, tips, maybe you walk through their home and it's a disaster. So you could give them home selling tips. So have several weeks, about at least 4 weeks of items of value that you could take depending on the circumstance. And then when they get tired of it and they choose to turn to a realtor, it can be you. There are lots of scripts in your conversation helper library to help with that, and that you can use as well. So I would encourage you, if you've never called one, try it. Anyone here listed a FSBO? No?
Came really close.
So they're a really good resource for you. At the very least, let's say all of that work doesn't get you the listing because they sell it themselves. When their friend or their family member or their coworker, anybody they know needs to sell their house, can the FSBO sell their house for them? No, they don't have a real estate license, right? And if they're not, so they'd either have to do it on their own, that person, or who do you think they're going to recommend? And then that FSBO you've been reaching out to, what should you be doing with their information?
Put it in command.
Yeah, put it in command. Find out where they moved to. Put them on a neighborhood nurture in their new neighborhood. You'll be the one to reach out to them now. Right? They're going to see that. That's somebody working hard. So they now become part of your SOI. So take advantage of all opportunities.
Jodi, you mentioned Craigslist, and then obviously I was just actually digging around on Zillow while you were talking that you can select for sale, like you can select by agent or by owner, but are there other sources? Because when I was looking, just a quick cursory search, it brings you a lot of other things. So it's like things that are on auction or foreclosure. But what are some other sources of finding FSBOs?
Just local things local to your area where they might advertise. So each area might be a little bit different in where they would do that. Keep your eyes peeled when you're driving around town for those signs. Now, there aren't a ton of FSBOs out there, okay? So it's not like you're going to come up with a search like we do in the MLS for houses, but they do come up. They're not as common these days, but they do still come up, and they're still a great lead source. So look for things in your area where people may advertise things like that. It could even be on Facebook, in the Facebook marketplace. If you have some kind of a local newspaper, very few people advertise in that anymore, but that's where you're going to find FSBOs, right? You're going to find FSBOs in the places no one else uses because they don't know where to advertise. Anybody else have a win they would like to share before we go? We heard a great one from Emily earlier.
Yeah, I'd call it a win. I had a phone call this morning from someone in San Jose who Googled realtors in the area. And because I always ask him what made him call me, and he said, out of the hundreds of agents around, and he said that I had the best reviews out of anyone, and the most, he said, which I'm not sure how he came up with that. But so one thing I'd like to point out, pick a platform and get all your reviews there, because it's too easy to get scattered all over the place. Zillow makes you sign up if you want to leave one. Google pretty much, I don't know, that's what I do. But anyway, so he went on my website, which is my Keller Williams website, through command. And he said, I really liked what it said, Rick. And it said, I'm a darn nice guy ready to go to bat for you. And he said, that's what did it. So I don't know, but I said, cool, I'm ready to kick some butt for you. Let's do this. And so I'm helping him to find a home down here to rent out for VRBO.
Awesome.
Do you only do Do you only do Google reviews? Because I was thinking about that. I sent my clients to Zillow, Google, and then I know a lot of people here like Rate My Agent or Yelp, but I don't know which one did you
Yeah, it's
pick.
too easy to get spread out. I just focus on
Yeah.
one. I would say just pick one and stick with it. And that's, it seems like more people use Google than anything else. That was just my read of it. So that's what I do.
Yeah, Google is probably the best one. Whatever you do though, send them the link to make it easy. Google and
Yes.
even your Facebook business page is a great place for them to go to, because when they Google you, that's one of the main things also that will come up. But I wouldn't send them more than 1 or 2 links, because if somebody asked me to go in and do that many reviews, I could love them to pieces.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
I was just gonna say, I just tell them, have them do one, and then later on, if something comes up where I do them a favor or something, I'll say, hey, you think you could, copy and paste that one to Zillow or something like that. That's, I don't want to, because when you ask them for a couple, it just doesn't happen. But yeah.
But there's no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you. If you have clients that are willing to do it on multiple, great. But if not, I think Google's your best one. Awesome. Any other wins?
I submitted 3 offers yesterday that were all very promising, and one of them I'm really hoping is going to get accepted. We submitted, as of yesterday, we were still the highest offer, but they're reviewing tomorrow and after the weekend, people taking some time off. But we still have some wiggle room too, like we can definitely go up a little more. So crossing my fingers for them. It's their dream house.
Hopefully next
Communicate
week
that
you'll
with
come on and
Jodi.
tell us it's accepted.
Yeah.
Good.
I got a win too. I followed up with a past client that led me to their brother, because I guess their brother was having issues with an agent. And I showed them houses this past weekend and we submitted an offer. And I was speaking to my lender because they're in the same office as the selling agent. And she's like, it's looking good. So
Nice. Is that the one
hopefully-
you saw over the weekend?
I'm sorry?
Is that the one you submitted over the weekend?
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Lots of activity out there. Keep up the good work, everyone. And I'll give you a few minutes back if you don't have any other questions.
I have one more thing going off what you just said, Jodi. At our office meeting this morning, we had like 3 or 4 listings that agents were pitching, and someone noted, yeah, hey, whoa, that's first time we've had like 3 or 4 listings pitched in a meeting for a while. So things are picking up.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see. We can feel it. So it's a good feeling. But remember, it's good to feel it so you know it's out there. But even if you don't feel it, remember, I shared the clip from Gary Keller from last year's mega camp. Perspective, right? In 2021, 5.1 million homes sold in the US. The year I started, 4.4 million homes sold in the US. That was 25 years ago. On average, there's been in the 5 million range, right? So just because it seems quieter than it has been, and it definitely has been, doesn't mean there isn't business out there for you to get. So you guys be the ones to go get it. All right, everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you soon.